perhaps just a tad older than I actually am, but I have to squint to see my phone. But I can introduce Joanne as I do this. Many of you know Joanne through her blog, as I do. She blogs under GothamGal. Joanne is an angel investor in the city who's made tons and tons of really great investments, and I'm sure tons and tons of not so great ones as well. Well, that's not fair. Maybe not monetarily successful ones. I'm sure they were all pretty good investments in their own right.
Yes.
Joanne's actually been a part of tech in New York since Web 1.0 in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
With
it was like light years ago. Yeah.
With Jason Calacanis. So you helped him launch the Silicon Alley Reporter.
Yeah.
I watched an episode of his show, Twist. Is that Twist, This Week in Startups?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
I don't know the name, but yeah, I know. I watched the show.
And I saw that with you guys, and it was great to see that, because he talked about Web 1.0 in New York, and how we actually do have a pretty long history now of
huge history.
Technology and startups.
This is like the size of the first community in New York in the tech, and that is very, very small.
Yeah. So, and since then, Joanne's been making investments as an angel investor in everything from restaurants to tech startups. And so Joanne also, and I've told her this, I'll tell you guys, Joanne's the first person I actually didn't know personally who has come down to speak at the people side. And so I really appreciate that. That's
very persistent.
It's all on behalf of the group. Okay? It's all on behalf of the group. So I would love to ask you, what was it like in the early days of the Alley?
It's such a different time. It's funny. I spoke at a class at NYU from someone who was involved in that industry at that time, and it was called The History of the Internet. And it was just so funny to talk to these young kids who were in college about stories about what it was like. And what was interesting about the first generation versus this generation is that there was, this technology platform was launched, the internet, and everyone who sort of got on it had this like, this is going to be it. This is going to change everything. And most of the people who started those businesses did not grow up with computers, right? This generation grew up with computers. It's an extension of who they are. They use technology every day. In many ways, they're a little more, I don't want to say artistic, but they're a little more big-viewed. And so a lot of the businesses that were built were almost like, well, let's just take brick and mortar and throw it up there. And it didn't work, obviously, because the entire industry imploded. But, and a few obviously remained. But I did tell a story, which is, I remember in the 90s walking the streets and seeing people with these like phones, this big next to their head, and I remember thinking, oh my God, like they think they're so important that they need to like be connected to someone all day long, And now like we all walk around. And I remember I came in once to meet Jason, and AOL had just launched chat. Now it's all we do all day. And I still remember sitting at this desk. I was in my husband's office, and it came up, and it was Jason like, hey. It's like, hey, and we're like going back and forth to our meeting, and I was like, this is so cool, And now it's just, it's just who we are.
Yeah, it's incredible. And you spoke about on your blog again. You spoke about a woman at NYU, Red Burns, who recently passed away. And it sounded like she had an incredible impact on you, an incredible impact on technology in New York in general.
She did.
Can you talk about the programs that she started? I would love to just hear more. I think she deserves that recognition.
She was amazing. Red Burns started the Interactive Telecommunications program at NYU, and she started this 25 years ago. And in many ways, ITP is very similar to MIT Media Lab. The differential is that the one at NYU is much more artistic. And there's a much more creative vibe at ITP, and the people that graduate don't necessarily go into technology. Some might become biochemists, other might become photographers. Where at MIT Media Lab, it's pretty much more structured in regards to what you're going to do when you get out of there. And so Red started this. She had seen a camera and she saw people videotaping, and she thought, this is the future. And she brought it to the guy that was running NYU at the time and said, there's something we should be doing with this. And she raised $250,000, I think was the number, and he said, okay, why don't you open this department? And she said to him, which is, even Red, who was the most unbelievably, she just said it as she saw it. There was no, holding back, ever, which is one of the things I loved about her. But I think one of the things which is interesting is the woman versus men thing that we always talk about in the tech industry is the head in NYU, she said, okay, great, I'll start it. You better hire someone really good to be my, run this thing. I better get along with them. And he's like, no, I am, because you're going to run it. And she's like, why would I run it? He's like, of course you're going to run it. And so what was great when they had the event for her and everyone got together and came back, you just realize how many people went through that program that are now working in the technology industry in New York, and it's powerful. And it's just like one of those things, you're like, wow, you went to ITP too. So it's very cool. She did something really great for New York.
And that's a powerful story in that, man, that's an important part of my career that I don't even know about, right?
Right.
That's an important part of all of our careers that work in tech in New York that maybe a lot of us don't know about. But it's also powerful because of just that, I don't know if you wrote about that before, or if I hadn't read that before.
No,
But her saying that she wasn't going to run it?
Yeah, she wasn't going to run it. Well, there's the videotape that they showed at the memorial, and I actually put it on my blog. You can go there and just do a search, GothamGal Red Burns, and it's about 20 minutes, and the tidbits that she talks about are amazing. And I think that the most interesting thing through the whole memorial, and I did write this, is one of the people that spoke, which I think is so kind of defines the technology industry, is that at ITP, when you come there, you have to learn, right? And I think when you're in this particular space, which is the Flatiron School, and you learn technology, if you're learning a language, you're there and you're asking questions, and how am I going to integrate technology, and how am I going to be part of these businesses? And essentially, in a startup world, you're there to learn. And I really like that saying. I thought that was really great.
Yeah. You prefaced it. First, let me let you all know, this is meant to be something of an interactive experience for you as well. I'm going to be facilitating. I'll ask maybe the majority of the questions, but I do want quite a few questions to come from you. So when you have a question, you raise your hand. I'll acknowledge you, and we'll start that after I ask my next question. You prefaced that by saying, tech and women, and there's a real dearth of women at the higher levels in tech, and to me, that's a huge issue for society, right? If we have the internet that is built by straight white men, we'll have an internet for straight white men, which doesn't serve the vast majority of the world. And I know that this is something that you're particularly passionate about, women in tech. Can you talk about how do we make this? You could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, I'm sure. But how do we, Cliff Notes version, how do we make technology more accessible, more welcoming? How do we encourage more young women to come into STEM? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. How do we encourage that to get more women in tech?
Yeah, well, I do think that it's happening now. In the education world, where you used to have to sort of push on them what you want to get done, they're now opening their arms and asking for people to help change their curriculums. You look at something like Little Bits, which is, if any of you know who Little Bits is, which is, Legos for the iPad generation, so you can understand, electrical engineering without even have to understanding electrical engineering, is that, or use something like Goldie Blocks, is that, these are young women that played with erector sets when they were kids. And at one point, their brother said, screw you go play with your Easy Bake Oven, and I'm going to continue playing with my erector sets. And I do believe that you're seeing technology and math and science all start to filter down through the school systems because everyone knows how important it is, and obviously to engage students who are engaged like this, you're not going to engage them in the same way in the schools, which was an old school way of just standing up and speaking at them. So I actually think the next generation of kids that are coming out of college, you'll see a lot more women that are interested in coding and are interested in pursuing their science part of their brain.
I loved the Goldilocks ad. I recently saw the Goldilocks ad with that incredible machine that all the little girls were building. That was
it was
perfect.
awesome.
Perfect.
It was really great, and we need to. I've read tons of books at one point when girls go to the back of the class and boys go to the front of the class, and what happens in junior high school, and I think being aware of it is the step in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing those posts that you do on women and entrepreneurs and making people understand.
There's a lot of great women entrepreneurs out there.
Yeah, it's great. So I'd love to know, we can transition a bit more towards, and this is all obviously the people side, and what we talked about here is the people side. I'd love to know, in terms of, as an investor, and I hope that this would have an impact on women in technology, how do we create cultures in technology companies that encourage more women to take up roles at the higher levels that make women want to be a part of our companies?
That's a great question. I'm a big believer that technology is changing the world. It's technology in every business, and which is why we're sort of in the startup nation. And New York is the epicenter of that because we are the best in health and media and finance and publishing. And so all these businesses are being created where you might be in technology, but you're building a business in publishing, so you sort of have one foot in publishing and one foot in the technology industry, which is why they say the technology industry is the second largest employer of people in New York. But if we really believe that we are changing the world, we have to also change those workplaces. And that means that there needs to be childcare, and there needs to be a lot of trust and faith in the people that you're hiring in your organization, that if they need to do what they need to do, go to their kid's soccer game or their kid's sick or whatever it is, they're still going to get done what they can get done because you don't need to come to the office. I mean, it's important for culture, and it's important for team building, and it's important to get projects done together. But God forbid, you can get on Skype and you can get it done at home, and there has to be that loyalty and appreciation for the people that you hired, where families first and work is second. And I do think Buddy Media did a great job of that, and which is what was the greatest thing about the culture. Family was first and business was second. And it's a wonderful company, and they obviously did really well.
Yep.
But
a
nice exit. But that was the mantra.
Yep. It's interesting. I was actually on a group of an email chain with a group of startup executives today, and the question was, can you guys all tell me what are you doing for maternity leave? Right, we're less than 50 people. I know that we're not required to do that by law, but I want to have a maternity leave policy. What are you all doing? And just to see the group actually engage in this and say, look, we're not required, but we did this and we thought that worked well and we added on that. There was a bit that was really technical and a bit that was just cultural. This is what we want for our companies.
Right. Well, the industry's getting older in regards to, 5 years ago it was more people in their mid-20s, and now there's a lot of people in their 30s, and they're all getting married and they're having, children. And, listen, one of the things I tell all the women that I am invested in who, do not have children yet and are thinking about children, I'm like, have the kids. Don't wait. I mean, it's not about the entrance strategy. It's about the exit strategy. And, they've been doing it in the fields for hundreds of years and then going out and baling the hay in the afternoon. You'll figure it out as an entrepreneur, but don't stop your personal life for your business life.
Yeah.
And I think that our company should be embracing that. I think you'll end up with better products and better cultures and much more profitable companies.
Is that something that comes into your calculus when thinking about making an investment? Culture and the founder's leadership styles?
Yeah, I mean, I am such an early investor. I was talking about someone this today. I mean, at my own little, as we all do, your group of people that you send your deals to, and what have you not. And many of them are early stage investors, but someone said, Steve, which is Michael from Founders Club, he's like, you're so much earlier than all of us. And, many times I invest in like one person who's started a company, has some traction, and it makes sense to me. And I'd say, out of the 40 some odd deals that I'm invested in and very involved in, probably half of them I gave them their first dollar. So it's really about the person first, that I see them as real hungry entrepreneurs that can build what they see in front of them, and then hopefully by getting involved I can help bring out the best in them.
What are the, if I were to ask, what leadership competencies do you think that define that entrepreneur who can actually make that happen?
It's really hard to define. I mean, it's almost like, like the Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 whatever hours. It's just, you just kind of know. And you just have a good feeling. And I also, the people that I invest in, I want to be able to have a meal with them. Like, I want to like them. And I want to, I want to understand and like their businesses. I mean, certain businesses come into my box and I meet them and I think, I totally get this. I know this is a great idea. This is a great business. I don't care about the business. So it's really hard for me to get excited about it.
Yeah. Again, I want to just take a moment, see if anybody else, I'll continue asking questions all day. I'll keep Joanne here for 3 hours.
There we go.
I think what you just said sort of begs this question. So what businesses do you like? You said there's some businesses you don't like, so what do you like? What's the thing?
I'm a bit of a generalist. I'm sure that if someone came in and analyzed everything that I've invested in, there's probably some kind of pattern in there. I just haven't figured it out. I've always been a generalist in regards to everything I do. I mean, like, we're one of those people who reads 20 magazines a month and, for absolutely ridiculous information that you do not need inside your head. And so, I've always had a good gut for what's coming down the pike. I like the food business. I'm in a variety of businesses in the food business. I love the real estate business. I'm in a bunch of different businesses in the real estate market. And then some there's sort of just fly in the middle there. It's a tough one. I mean,
would you say there's like an intuitive hit that you sort of get as you're reading it, and you're just kind of like,
yeah,
wow, this just lit me up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm in this business called Bango. And this guy, Brian Shimmerlich, won, I think it was EDC's Business of the Year. Must have been not this past spring, but the spring before. And my husband actually judged the contest and came home. And I was like, oh, who won today? He goes, oh, this guy, he's making these vending machines for taxi machines. I was like, that's genius. I want to talk to that guy. And I was his first dollar in, and it's sort of evolved into a variety of different things. And, I've gotten a lot of people invested, and people get it, and he's doing a great job. And I'm sure a lot of people thought I was out of my mind. But to me, I totally got what he was doing. I understand what he was building and the 3 different ways he was going to make money, and how it was really a media play, and, it was just a gut.
It's a great product. I actually...
Bango, you've seen Brian?
Well, I met him. He was at an NYU startup fair.
Right.
And I was one of his first customers.
There you go.
It was great. It's the damnedest thing. It's like the smallest, thinnest, littlest vending machine in the world. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. And he's a really great entrepreneur. So, I don't think anyone else would have... I know nobody else. I mean, I was the first one in, and it was like, Joanne invested in that. There's a lot of that.
As companies grow, especially in the early stage, what do you see as the most critical team dynamics, right? So you have 3 to 5 early stage team members, 2 or 3 co-founders. What are the things that make or break that team to get them to that next level?
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, you really have to hire people that are in the same culture. If you all eat lunch together every day and you hire someone who doesn't want to eat lunch with the crew, that person doesn't belong in your company. I mean, that's the simplistic. I think it's really important to also, even though we all wear so many different hats in the startup world, it is still important that everyone understands what their chain of command is going to be. Originally, of course, the entrepreneur wants to talk to everyone in the company and everyone's involved, but at one point, I think once you get past a certain amount of people, which isn't that many, it could be 15, that you talk to your heads every single Monday and you strategize and how you all work together. I also think I'm a big believer at the beginning, particularly, is to hire slowly, fire quickly. Take your time, make sure that person's right, spend a lot of time with them, listen to their ideas, think if it makes sense, make sure there's a cultural fit, and give a lot of rope. I'm a big believer in a lot of rope until you fuck up and then you chop that rope off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I get a question a lot, which I think is interesting. People ask me, how do I find a co-founder? What should I look for in a co-founder? And I have my spiel, but I would love to hear if someone came to you and said, I'm looking for a co-founder for this business. How do I find them? What should I look for?
Okay. I know there's a lot of people that like only investing in teams. They want to see co-founders, or you start an accelerator and they only want to make sure that one person is the CTO. There has to be a tech person. I'm not a big believer in that necessarily. I've seen a lot of co-founders and a lot of companies over the years where one of them ended up sort of rising to the occasion of being the leader and then having to get rid of the co-founder, and it's never pretty. Interesting enough, I see more women teams than I see men teams for whatever reason. I think as a single founder, it's not about being the co-founder. It's finding someone who is going to do what I don't like doing and I am not that great at. I've had founders who are like, I did this, it took me 3 days. I hate it. I can do it. Obviously, if you're an entrepreneur, you're pretty damn capable. But you should find someone who does things and enjoys the things where you don't like it, so it's a good fitting. And then they aren't a co-founder, they're your first hire.
So complementary skill sets in your founding team, not necessarily co-founders.
Yeah. Co-founders are co-founders, came up together, you created this company or this idea and you execute on together. I think if you start something on your own and you start to gain and build something in traction, you hire people, you don't make them co-founders. Sometimes you can, but it's a tough one.
It gets sticky.
It gets very sticky.
You're giving a large portion of equity of your company away.
It gets sticky. And everyone learns at the beginning, I should not have given that person so much stock.
Yeah.
And so 1 year cliffs are very important.
Yeah. And then investing after that as well.
Yes.
It's amazing to me how many young entrepreneurs say, I trust my team. I don't want to have a vesting schedule. First of all, you're not going to get any investor in without a vesting schedule, but you're doing something terrible for each other without a vesting schedule.
Yeah. Legal documents are about the things that happen that go wrong, not about the things that happen that go well.
So Joanne, if you look at your crystal ball, right? What is the thing that you think you might want to invest in now? What are some of the areas you think are maybe could have some traction for you in your time horizon?
That's why I don't invest in ideas. I do think that we are going into a very interesting time, is that I still think that we will see every year one Instagram or one Snapchat, we won't see multiples. And that we're going to see more large companies buy many of the smaller companies to become more nimble and much more aware of how they can take their company into the next century, because many are still living in the past. And I think that's a good thing because they have a lot of cash. And they do have customers and a big foundation and all that good stuff. But I think we're kind of going into a time period where there will be a lot of, I don't want to call them mom and pop businesses, but there's so many open platforms now to build businesses on top of. And I love entrepreneurs. I mean, even though I don't invest in them, that are lifestyle businesses, that you can build a business and you can build a unique community and a niche on the internet, and be very savvy about building, you know, a nice little business that supports your lifestyle. And you know, not only through that, but the next generation of kids aren't as concerned about making money as they are concerned about being happy and building businesses that, you know, they feel good about, they want to go to every day. So, you know, I don't know what we're going to see in terms of like internet businesses, but I think, you know, something like Bitcoin, you know, that's new, it's different, it's life-changing. We'll see more of those kind of platforms that are big global platforms. They're going to change the way that we live our lives. And we're also going into this sort of post-industrial revolution where computers are going to do a lot of the stuff that we do. And there's not going to be as many jobs. And so we need to figure that one out too. I mean, you know, we could find ourselves 5 years from now even, that all these taxis that are driving around the city are not being driven by people. They're being driven by computers. You know, what happens to all those people? Where do they go for jobs? And so that's something that, you know, I think we need to spend a lot of time thinking about, is, you know, in, you know, the urbanization of all of our countries, because people are on here and they want community. And so I think we're going into a very interesting time.
So you talk about entrepreneurs looking for meaning in their work and lifestyle businesses. Obviously, those aren't businesses that should find VC money or even angel investment necessarily.
Right.
But there are other businesses that are large business now that are B Corps and have certainly a larger vision than just profit. And some of them don't even want exits, that have taken a lot of, like Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a great business. It could sell or it could have an IPO, but they've stated, look, that's not the goal here. That's not what we want.
Right.
And there's tons of VC money in Kickstarter.
Not that much.
Some.
Yes.
Enough? I don't know. I guess I don't.
There's not a lot of money in there. There is money, but it's not for many people.
That's fair. It's interesting, though, that you said it seems to be a trend more towards, I mean, just the creation of the B Corp in and of itself. How does that impact investors?
You know, I was talking about this a couple of years ago, is that, first of all, there's all new money, right? I mean, no one even heard about it. It was an angel investor 15 years ago. Like, no one even like talked about that, right? So you have angel investors, someone like myself who, you know what, I'm happy to put money into a business I think could be a $20 million business, or, you know, or even if it ends up being a $10 million business, and they decide, you know what, I love running this business. This is a great business. I made $2 million at the end of the year. I'm going to pay everyone back their prorated share, and it's going to take 2 years to do that. And then every year you get a check. I mean, it's different for tax purposes, you know. And then you can raise money on crowdfunding, which I think is fantastic, because at the end of the day, you know, even if you have been successful as an investor, VC, angel, private equity, it doesn't make any difference. At the end, it's the market that tells you if your business is really going to work. I mean, they're the ultimate money. And so I like that, because you can put these businesses up there, and if in fact you do raise money, it says something. It says, you know, these are your consumers that have the capital to put into your business and like it. In the VC world, I do think that we will see some companies like a Kickstarter, even like a Meetup, where you know, they're making money, but they're enjoying the company and what it's doing. And so instead of having an exit, because VCs will say, I put my money in order to get an exit, there will be some that will start, and then more that will happen, where there will be some businesses that just pay at the end of the year, and you know, that will be a different way of making money and distributing it.
It's a different liquidation for VCs.
It's a very different liquidation, yeah.
Interesting.
How do you feel about Snapchat's valuation? Do you think that, like...
Someone should take those kids in the back and smack them. I'm sorry, like, there's, you know, to me, I think Snapchat is great, but let's look at Facebook. I mean, it was for young kids, and, you know, first it scaled college where it started, then it scaled down to kids. You know, now it's really older people that are using Facebook, and kids are, not really using it like they used to do. And that's fine. I mean, 15 years ago there was GeoCities, I mean, that was it. That was the big one, and so we're going to see all these different, what's the next Facebook, what's the next Snapchat, and I think that Facebook is the perfect place for Snapchat to be, to take them to the next level. But I have to, in many ways, commend the people that invested in Snapchat that are letting their entrepreneurs make a decision on what they want to do, because I am a big believer that you should not, it's at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneur's company. And if they want to sell, they should sell. If they want to stay, they should stay. They're going to ask for advice. I mean, I was in a company and we had a couple options, and I was the only one on the board who said, I just don't know why you're selling now. I mean, you're going to double your revenue next year. You're going to be worth more money. If you want to sell, sell. If you feel like, everyone needs to put some money in their pocket and wants to walk away and do something great, but I just don't think, your exit is here. And they ended up waiting. And everyone was really happy they did. But for, $2 or $3 billion, like, I don't know about that.
Well, they've definitely taken money off the table already, though. So the
Yes,
guys
they
who
have.
founded Snapchat, they're good for life.
Yeah, they have. They've already taken money off the table. So, it's a Las Vegas play.
Yeah, it's a different...
Yeah, it's a different mentality.
What do you want, $50 million in your pocket, or do you want $150 million in your pocket?
Yeah.
I'm good both ways.
Yeah, and they're young.
Yeah. Oh, geez, they're young.
So as an entrepreneur, should I try to figure out a way to monetize or make any money? Because it seems like you don't figure it out.
I mean, I tend to invest in businesses that have, I'm interested in revenue. And there's others that, you say to yourself, if you're going to have 100 million, page views, you're going to figure out how to make money. And so, we're going to see that in Pinterest. It's a perfect example. So in Twitter, Twitter's a profitable company. And so, I don't think anyone thought about what it was going to be. It was just, what can this be? And then we'll figure it out later down the line. I think it depends on what your business is.
They're much more likely to fail, those plays, but if you make it,
You make it big.
you make it big.
Yeah.
It's like a marketplace. You're probably going to fail, but if you make it,
You make it big.
good on you.
Yeah. I tend to invest in companies that have revenue models.
Revenue already or revenue models?
Like a very, like on your Series A, you're going to start making some cash.
What kind of non-monetary services do you or help do you offer companies that you're investing in, and how do you taper off those services? How do you decide when to pull back?
I tell everyone that I invest in, I am available all times. I mean, I help them raise money. I help them think about their second round. I engage VCs that I think might be the right people for them to invest in their business. I'll interview people that they're hiring for their team. I interviewed someone today for a company I invested in, and this is her third employee, and I've interviewed them all. I'll look at anything. I mean, I say if you can email me 10 times a day, I will find out the answer if I don't know it, and I will get back to you. And if you need to get somewhere and introduce to someone, I'll see if I can poke around and find that person. In anything. I mean, I feel like I've been in a lot of movies before, and so I can hopefully help with a lot of expenses that don't need to happen, or things that I know that have happened in businesses before, so that we can cut a lot of it off at its knees and find that we save 3 months in finances. Pretty much anything.
Have you seen anything like that lately, where you had cut something off the knees?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm in a business right now called Gertrude, which I think is a very cool business, which is basically, what I liked about it is, I think it's always great when entrepreneurs go into many times verticals they know nothing about, because they look at them in a very different set of eyeballs. And this guy, Kenneth, was talking to friends he knew in the art world, and no one has really figured out the art world online and made money at it successfully. Although 20 by 200 relaunched, and she was actually very profitable, a very good business. But bad shit happened. So she relaunched, and I believe in that business, and I actually invested in it this round. But Kenneth came up with this concept, which is you make a purchase in art, and then it's over. You bring it home, it's all yours. And what he thought was the most interesting part about art is learning about art and the conversations around art. So he looked at it like a pyramid, and he said, the top is the purchase, but the really cool stuff is what happens before you get to the top. And so what he has done is created almost a Skillshare type business where you can sign up for Gertrude, and you will get emails in regards to events that are happening around the city. So let's say someone can give you a walk on Chelsea, and they'll take 20 people around, or someone is talking at a gallery from 7 to 8 about a particular installation they just did. Or a major artist is going to come and speak at Phillips, and it's before, and it's only 30 people, and sell its tickets, and we split the revenue between the curator who's speaking and us, Gertrude. And if art is purchased through this particular angle, then we get a piece of that too. But it's not so much about the art purchased. And so what I like about that is that he came up from a different angle, and I'm very familiar with Skillshare, and another business that has built the same kind of model in Europe around music, where they're doing like music events in people's homes. And so he can, I've given a lot of information to him so that we can learn from what has already been done. The model's not so different, the content's different. And I think it's super cool.
You had mentioned crowdfunding before, and I think this is an interesting, and especially crowdfunding in terms of finance, not crowdfunding a la Kickstarter, but for finances. And something interesting that's happening now are large syndicates.
Yeah. An Angels List.
On Angels List, on Angels List syndicates. Can you tell me from an investor's perspective, and again, this is the people side, right? If you were to, and you wrote a blog post on this, I don't remember where you came out, I think that you said you weren't going to start syndicates.
I didn't do it.
But if you were to go into a syndicate, what would be, in terms of the people side of the syndicate, what would you need to know about the person leading the syndicate, about the other people in the syndicate? And what do you think an entrepreneur should want to know about that syndicate, not just the person leading? Or is the person leading just like a VC and the others are LPs?
It's really interesting is that what Angels List did, and it's created, is really like very early adoption stuff. And so, if I led a syndicate, it's essentially like I'm like this mini VC, except I don't really know the people that put money into me except what I read online. Like, I'm going to give you 100K, I'm going to give you 50K, and all of a sudden I've raised $2 million, and I'm responsible for making those decisions with that money. And I didn't like that model, per se, for me. I feel like...
Because you didn't know the LPs or the people investing in you?
I don't want to be... These people are, it's one thing if you're raising money as a venture capital firm, and you're raising money from the state of Oregon, or University of Maryland, or a family foundation, and those people, they understand the risks. In regards to this, I just felt like these people trusted me to make these decisions, and I have my own personal syndicate I send the deals to, like a crowdfunding, and I want them to say, you know what, Joanne, this isn't for me, or oh my God, this is a fantastic deal, I'm totally into this. I met with the entrepreneur twice already, and I'm going to invest with you. And so I like that. So that's what I like. I have 2 companies that are on crowdfunding right now. One of them is Rick's Picks, which is on Circle Up. And I love Circle Up because the consumer products business, if anyone is in that, is such a hard business. I mean, to get family and friends to help you make mustard, that you think it's really exciting because you got on one Whole Foods. It's like you got a long road ahead of you. And you have a lot of capital ahead of you. And so, private equity people don't put any money in those businesses until you pretty much hit $10 million a year in business. Well, that's really hard to get to $10 million a year and raise that money in between. And so Circle Up is giving people that like the product and like the brand an opportunity to invest and own a piece of these consumer products that they like and they enjoy and they eat. And so Rick will do $3.5 million in volume this year. Actually, he could do 7 next year based on what's in the pipeline. And so he's almost there, but he needs capital to get there. So that's why I like Circle Up. And today, actually yesterday, on Seed Invest, Scoot Networks launched. Now, what's interesting about Seed Invest, which is what I really like, and I think this is the model, is that, and I think it should be the model for Circle Up too, is that they have found all of these investors, mostly in New York, a lot of people that are on Wall Street, that everyone wants to get into the startup business. And so they have got them on their sites, they're accredited investors, and they can see the deals that they're highly curating and they get behind them, and they can make their own personal decision to invest in it. And so, what these companies really should be doing is there are angel groups all over the country. I've talked to women that are a group in New Mexico, I've talked to a women group that is down in Florida. I know men that are like, in Cleveland, that this group of guys. I talked to this guy today, he's got a whole group of people, he's up in Westchester. And those organizations should be finding those angel groups and saying to them, you should get on our platform. Because you're all accredited, you're all doing this together, almost like a meetup, that you could all say together, like, let's get on Seed Invest. I just saw this went up, Scoot. We love this idea. Let's, as a group, let's put in $200,000. And the other thing I like about it is Willa Skincare actually did it on Circle Up. And one guy invested a lot of money who deal flow doesn't come to him. He doesn't live in, New York or San Francisco or, LA or Chicago where a lot of these deals come through. But he had been in the consumer products cosmetic business for 30 years of his career. And he saw this, he's like, oh my God, this is a great, product. It's a void in the marketplace. I understand how to build a company like this. I have money. Where else am I going to put my money? Banks stop giving money. You don't put your, that's why there's all this change. And I think we are going to see a lot of, when you asked before, a lot of new companies that are cropping up that are going to be funding small businesses. But he put money in, and he's been an engaged investor. And he's thrilled, and we're thrilled, because he would have never found this. And so I think that's the beauty of, all of this crowdfunding. I think that we will see way too many crowdfunding things, but the cream always rises to the top.
And so as an investor, the relationship you have with other investors as a sanity check, as a sounding board, that provides more value, much more value than the 5% carry that you might get.
Yeah. Some of the top people on Angel List, I know them. Like, they're not really great investors.
Don't name names here.
They haven't really invested. They've just sort of made a lot of noise. And I'm sort of like, why would you give these people your money? But people have.
Yeah.
How do you think a valuation in an angel investment? And how many do you look at that you figure the valuation is too high and you walk away from it?
It's a really interesting question, and a lot of first round investments are notes versus valuations, just because it's easier to do. And a lot of people say, well, I did at the beginning, I don't like notes, I wanted a real round. The truth is, if you can't raise the next round, it doesn't make any difference what the first round was. So you might as well do a note because it's easy. At the beginning, and what's interesting is I'm leading deals now because, which leads to the valuation question is, let's say you're in a vertical. Let's say you're in a real estate vertical. And, you're pitching all these people in the real estate space and you're changing real estate. And you pitch to VCs and they're like, you're too early, or I don't really understand it. But you go and you pitch to Corcoran to use their product, and the head of Corcoran pulls you into another room and goes, can I put money in this thing? You got a business there. And so you can raise $2 million from that industry, but no one is setting these valuations. So I have been leading these deals. And again, I'm just putting in my prorated share, but because I'm known now in the industry and people trust that I'm going to get involved and I'm going to represent their interest, I have set the valuation and I've done the terms. And so to me at the beginning, it really comes down to percentage. You know, I want to raise $1 million and I want to sell 20% of my company. So you're $4 million pre, $5 million post, you sold 20% of your company. And it, you know, unless you are in hard goods, which you're going to need a lot more money later on, sometimes you're going to need to sell more, like 25% of your company. And so it's really about percentage more than anything else at this point. At least it is to me in regards to, you know, what you should be giving away. And no entrepreneur should be giving 30% of their company away at this point. It makes no sense to me.
You said that you're leading in rounds now. Can you talk about the psychological impact for you and for the entrepreneur to know that you're going to be there leading the round, no matter how much you're putting in?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm already so involved in these companies, and so if anything, you know, they're thrilled that I'm willing to step up to the plate, get all the paperwork done, talk to all the people that are investing, but I really let them do the work. I mean, I'm not going to go out and call my 12 friends to follow me in a deal, which is a VC might say, we have 2 companies we really like to do deals with, and they'll put in the other amount. You know, and there's a lot of, and I think it's really important for an entrepreneur to go through that. I mean, you'll see a lot of them, you know, they'll come into you and they'll be like, I'm going to raise $1.5 million, this is my valuation, and I'm like, okay, you know, come back to me. You know, I love what you're doing. I'm totally interested. And they come back like, you know what? I'm too early for all the VCs. I'm only going to raise $750. I think I'm going to do like a $3.5 million valuation, you know, a cap. And it's just like, okay, well, I could have told you that, but I didn't want to tell you that because it's important that you learn that yourself. And so it's the same thing when you go out and you raise money. Raising money sucks, but you learn a lot through the process. You learn a lot about your business. It's just like writing a business plan. You know, writing a business plan in many ways at the beginning is moot because tomorrow everything could change. But I want to see someone write a business plan, and there's something about that exercise that you learn so much about your business and yourself. And so, you know, it's the same thing. And so it really is more of a team effort at the beginning when I lead around versus, I guess, a VC.
So we have another 2 questions, let's say. I don't want to keep Joanne all night, but yeah.
Yeah, I have a question in regards to the future of social media. What do you think Facebook, Twitter, other companies will do with the big chunks of data, personal data that they hold? Are they going to sell them? Where it's going to go? Because, you know, I mean, obviously it's not really too sure with the Twitter IPO, you know, like where the social media is going. What are they going to do with things, data?
You know, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's so much.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen with social media and data? I mean, you know, data is like the big word now, right? Grab that data. Before it was like, grab those emails, you know? You know, I think I've been a big believer in the last couple of years in companies that I invested in that aren't so much social media oriented, but data oriented, which is, you know, we should have a chief data officer here because companies want this data that you can sell to them, but the truth is they don't even know what the hell to do with that data, right? So if you're selling data to them, it would be really great if you could say, what exactly do you want from this data? And helping them on the other side. And I think that is a powerful thing in regards to it. I mean, has anyone read The Circle yet? Oh my God. A must read, okay? This is Dave Eggers' new book, The Circle. It's gotten very mixed reviews, but I'm going to tell you, I'm in 38% right now on my Kindle, and it is a fascinating book about the world that we live in. You know, this young girl goes to work basically on a Google, at Google. I mean, it isn't Google. They say it, they don't say, but it's Google. And there's no privacy. There's, right. Everything's transparent. Everything is coming at her from the sales to what's going on in the company, and it's all social and everyone's connected, and it's just like it's creepy, overwhelming, but it's not so like when I read 1984 when I was a kid. It was like, oh my God, like you read this now and it's kind of that 1984, but it's not, it's right now. And so I highly recommend everyone to read it, and that kind of tells you what's going to go on with social media.
Great. So
What do you think of Shark Tank?
You know, I watched it for the first time this weekend. Yeah, there's a company that I'm invested in Los Angeles, and he was on Shark Tank this week.
How accurate do you think it is in terms of the actual process that happens?
It actually, they told him he was going to be on it. He couldn't tell anyone. It was just like, shh. And, what was interesting is he's a 3-time entrepreneur. And he has this business called Edison Jr. He's just a super smart guy. And he built in his garage in the Palisades in Los Angeles, his ideas. And his ideas, he has launched on Kickstarter. If they stick, he builds businesses around them. And it's kind of cool. And so this particular one is called Doorbot. And essentially it connects to your phone, right? So you're in your house, door rings, you're somewhere, you can see who's right door. He's like selling lots of these things. It's unbelievable. And he just did a deal with a huge chain, whatever. And, like whatever. So anyhow, so we went on the show, and it was just really funny to watch. And this is like you come through the door, and they all dissed him, except for one person, And he said, "I want to buy, your 10% of your company for $700,000, and that I'll own this in perpetuity and blah blah blah." Well, Jamie actually knows all this stuff, and he was just like, "No way." No, I can get this kind of venture debt. I've already got this. That makes no sense. And the guy was just like, you wouldn't take $700,000, And the woman who's on the show, same thing. That's a lot of money, Jamie. And he's just like, I'd take your money if we did this. And basically spit back, real deal about how you structure a deal. And the guy's like, no. And Jamie's like, it's fine. And I thought, what, you were great because you actually understood what you were getting into. So I don't know what happens in the post of people that don't understand. Like, I met this woman a couple years ago who built this gaming company. It was super cool. It was games for girls. We go back to the STEM conversation in regards to more girls in games and STEM and how do you get it. And she came out of the advertising world. She didn't live far from New York. She was like, upstate Connecticut. And she had got a couple investors in her business that were actually major people that ran huge businesses that had retired, like household name kind of guys. And they invested her money. They gave her $750,000 for her business. And she came to talk to me and was looking for more money and how she was going to develop, and she was just starting to hit it. She was doing a deal with Macy's. She was doing a deal with Pepsi. They would play these games. It was super cool. She said, but I just have to tell you, I only own 11% of the business. And I was like, oh my God. And I actually called her lawyer that I knew. I was so upset. For days I was upset. How could you let her do that? And he's like, well, she was really like your partners, whatever. And I said to her, you should close your business. Walk away. Do not raise money. You're in your basement. Don't do anything. And then come back and do it again. Because you got terrible advice. And you don't own this company. They do. But the company's worthless without you. So I don't know if that's the kind of same thing that happens on these Shark Tank businesses. Is they're like, woohoo, I got $1 million. And then you realize when you said yes, that actually you now own 11% of your business.
I think sometimes it goes that way. They really are looking for the savvy presenters.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of some of the things you said early on about the CEO and how you hire is very important.
Yeah. Well, it's good entertainment.
Yeah. They're nasty.
Yeah. It's funny.
Great. Well, do we have time for one more?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Sophie. How will the dynamics of the relationship between the investors and the entrepreneur change with crowdfunding?
It's a great question. And I think that, the businesses that I'm in, there's a portion that's coming from crowdfunding and a portion that's coming from investors. Most of those crowdfunding people are almost like you don't know who they are. You're going to just get the money, and in many ways you'll see who the people are that have invested. And no different than Angel List is that you're you're hoping those people are going to make the right decisions and help. But again, I think any entrepreneur that didn't hear from one of those people and said, I have knowledge, I can help you, is worth engaging. I mean, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And I think that is just one of the many things you have to deal with as an entrepreneur, which is managing your investors, managing your team, managing your product build.
And a lot of what you were doing is talking about investing in the entrepreneur. So in crowdfunding, from an investor point of view, that dynamic also changes too, because you don't necessarily have that relationship.
No, you don't. It's more about the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Joanne, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This was really great.
Thank you.